Welcome to Badger Beer Hour, where I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues Landon Cherney and Chris Drosner.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Excellent. This is what my face really looks like. I feel like we need to just mention that, get it out of the way right away. Sorry, you have to see my whole face this month. No, we don't have to do that, Greg. Come on now.
Landon, we have some interesting news pieces this month.
Chris is just going to start it right away. He's got a fire lit under his ass.
Normally, like Landon kind of introduces us and introduces the news and kind of throws it to me for the various items. This time, I just want to kind of I got something to say here. So first of all, happy dry January to those who observe, and that's kind of that's the only segue that I'm doing. Okay, so back on January 3rd, we're going to talk about this. Just as dry January was really beginning, Pabst Blue Ribbon, folks, sent a tweet that appeared on Stephen Colbert. And if you're watching this, you probably already know what that tweet was. Except, like probably my mom, who probably watches this and probably hasn't heard about this tweet. So sorry about that, Mom. But here's this PBR tweet. It's going to make the rest of this a little uncomfortable now that I know my mom's watching. But okay. So I'm going to take off my little news hat and put on my pundit hat here for this one. So, yeah. The guy who sent this tweet said last week on LinkedIn that he was fired for this tweet. His title for that job was brand manager, creative and communication. And that doesn't really sit well with me. Let's just kind of recap all this. Okay, so most of you probably know that Pabst has one of those kind of like voicey, intentionally edgy, kind of troll-like Twitter presences. And as December was running out, the company started tweeting posts and images that were clearly like part of a new campaign that was built around the idea of Wet January, which encouraging folks to drink not less, but more during a month when many people, especially in the beer and hospitality business, put their drinking on hold. I think this kind of campaign is bad in that it punches down, on people who are doing something good for their mental and physical health. I don't like that, but was it on brand for Pabst? Yeah, absolutely. So, and then the other aspect of this that a lot of people were talking about, regarding the ass eating, was kind of seizing on the that this tweet was kink shaming, or that it was not like sex positive somehow. And I think that kind of misses the point. What I believe was the point of this tweet is that it was not really about a sex act, in that eating the ass, but that it was about demeaning those who are doing dry January. Many other, when you tell somebody to do a sex act, that is generally taken. Think about all the other ways in which you do that. Sucking and licking and fucking and whatever. I'm sorry. This is a very unusual area, but those things are meant to demean the person who is doing that act. So I think that I don't think this had anything to do with sex. I think it had to do with go take a hike, basically. So either way, I have here's the thing here's why I don't think this guy should have been fired. I have to assume that this campaign, if not probably this campaign, but if not, certainly the general voice and kind of edginess of Pabst Twitter, it was approved by somebody higher up than a brand manager for creative and comms. Now, because of that, even though I don't like this tweet, I mean, I don't know. I don't care about the tweet. I guess it's just a tweet. But the campaign, I think, is generally bad. I think it's poking fun at something that should be good for people, and we should have a positive discussion about. but I think it's really dumb that this guy got fired for basically perfectly, flawlessly executing the intended message of this company. So this had all the signs of somebody who did something that his bosses were either fine with or didn't care about. And then once the internet world started crashing down on them, then they suddenly cared and he got fired. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any other? I haven't talked enough about the eating.
Well, they had sent out other tweets, and I don't remember what they were, and I'm sure they deleted them now. But when January started and everybody was going on and on and on about dry January, they had already started in on dry January and how it was stupid. And there again, like I said, I don't remember what they had said. Basically, they were encouraging people not to do dry January, and drink Pabst. Which
like this whole campaign had like graphics and
whatever.
This is a pretty elaborate thing. It was not just this is not just one tweet.
And you're right. It is on brand with what they've been doing the last half dozen months, whatever it is, since they really started having a Twitter presence again. They've been edgy and and that's that kind of a tweet is what people have been expecting to come out of their Twitter account.
Yeah.
So for me, when I saw that, I laughed, I chuckled a little bit, and then I just moved on. It was nothing that, I laughed and I went, oh, that seems about right for Pabst, because that's what they've been doing.
It's so juvenile too. Like, I mean,
it's crazy.
That's the part I love.
It's something a 22-year-old would say.
That's where I'm at with this. Keep going, though, Landon.
So I guess I didn't really think that much about it until I had seen some retweets and some thoughts that you had, Chris, about it. And then I thought, because honestly, when you go out on Twitter anyway, you can see, I mean, the shit that you see out on Twitter. I mean, it literally just, if you just keep scrolling, because it's not it's not worth your time to worry about. And that's really what Twitter's become, is just all the hell of the universe. So I didn't think that much of it, but I agree with you. I don't think that he should have gotten fired. I think it was just they were facing backlash and they had to do something about it. The axe had to hit the. They needed a fall
somewhere.
Guy. Yeah, they needed a fall guy. And
Landon. I think this guy's going to land on his feet based on.
Oh yeah. And I had a good time with it. Y'all knew I was laughing about it hours afterwards. And I kind of took the silly angle on it, which was just like it reminded me of when I was 7 and I wouldn't stop laughing at a fart joke or that my mother said fart and I just couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
And it really took Drosner's message to us, to our group chat, for me to like ground myself a little bit and think about, there's a bigger issue here. And this dude did get fired because they fired him. I wasn't done laughing and he was already fired.
It sounded like it was end of the day.
It was literally like I was still laughing.
This was like first thing in the morning on the Monday after New Year's, right? So this is the Monday when everybody's back to work, and it was
crazy.
He was gone by midday, and there was talk that he was fired, he was fired, or that something had happened by end of the business day. So.
Right.
Yeah, and so it all happened real swift, and I agree with y'all. Not that it matters because we weren't in charge, but this guy was the fall guy. It's pretty clear.
For sure.
And I even doubt that he was even the one who he might have scheduled the tweet, but I even doubt that he was the one who behind, because Chris said this was a campaign. I don't know if you can go back and see it or if it's deleted or whatever, but it was it was a campaign. So you could tell they had scheduled tweets or someone was behind there tweeting, but usually that guy that's tweeting for a big corporation like this usually isn't the main marketing guy that comes up with campaigns. And, sometimes I guess it is, but I don't know. He just feels like the fall guy. He feels like the fall guy. and they'll be back to sending insulting tweets really, really soon. I mean, I kind of a little bit mirror it to Wendy's, who have it's Wendy's who's gotten in trouble for some of their crazy ass tweets that are just sometimes fun. They're funny, but like, and they're on brand because they do it all the time, where they're insulting McDonald's or they're calling out Chick-fil-A for their chicken sandwich or stuff like that. So like, you can't hide behind like one guy, like Chris says. If again, we all know, and we've all been on your tweet, we know we weren't even shocked. I wasn't even shocked. I just thought it was hilarious.
The thing for me was that the problematic part of it was not the part that got it all the attention. The eating ass part was the part that got it all attention, and I think the underlying kind of message of Dry January, come on, was the real problematic part. So no, that's
all right.
That's
so we've spent almost 12 minutes on eating ass. So we'll move on. I really don't know how to segue out of that, but so Chris.
Yeah,
we've got a couple of brewery openings to catch up on, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Gannett, Wisconsin's reporters put together a nice year-end update on breweries and distilleries that opened in the state in 2021, and we covered most of them here on Badger Beer Hour, but we did miss a couple. Both of them are up in northeastern Wisconsin. New Denmark Brewing is the beer branch of a burgeoning little beverage empire that includes Duck Creek Vineyard and Winery and Denmark Distilling. This is in a little complex between Denmark and Green Bay, right along I-43 there. Owner Jim Pletz added his house brewed beers to his offerings this fall, and he's also growing some of his own hops as well. Not far from that area is Manitowoc, and that's where Will and Cassie Schneider opened up Sabbatical Brewing back in March. We missed this one by quite a bit, guys. In a former flour mill in Manitowoc. It's got an 8,000 square foot brewery and tap room with 24 lines, pouring mostly Will's own beers. The story mentions IPAs, fruited sours, ambers, pilsners, and hard seltzers among the rotation. And one other story that kind of a new expansion type deal, Port Washington, the Inventors Brew Pub in Port Washington is expanding with a big new building just a few blocks from where it is now. It's going to be right on their kind of harbor front area. It's a 25,000 square foot brewery, tap room, and restaurant. Over 2 stories, and they're going to have like an event space there. It was this building was once used by the Lakeside Brewery, which was founded in 1847 in Port Washington. So it's got some brewing history to it. So cool things happening in downtown Port Washington.
Cool.
There we go. Excellent.
Chris, it says here we've got some Us Weekly type celeb news.
Yeah. Just a few days before everybody was talking about PBR's eating ass. I'm gonna try to say that phrase like in every segment today.
That's a good idea.
I'm gonna work it in with Ryan, but maybe he's got some ideas on that. Betty White died, right? That was sad. New Year's Eve. R.I.P. Queen.
Absolutely.
How is this remotely Wisconsin beer news? I know. I can read your minds. Well, you may know that Mineral Point has a tangential connection to Betty. Her last husband, the one that she's like 99. So she's had a few. Was from Mineral Point, which is in southwestern Wisconsin, and she had visited there at least a few times. So at Commerce Street Brewery downtown, there's one of those beer boards where you could buy beer for your buddy or a teacher or anybody named Pete or whatever, how they work. Well, a few years ago, people started buying beers for Betty, and it became like a thing to the point where they had like dozens of beers waiting for her. And then this really became a thing after her death. And then it really became a thing after an NPR story about a week after she died and everybody, and then by then you could like buy beers online for her and stuff. And what owner Mike Zupke is doing is donating the revenue from all these, they're literally buying these beers for that will obviously never be claimed. He's donating all that money to the Iowa County Humane Society and some other local shelters, which of course, if you know Betty White, is a cause very close to her heart. So how much are we talking here? By last Friday, when I checked this out, they had the count was up to 524 beers for Betty. That is more than 62 gallons of beer. That's 2 barrels and over $2,600 for the animal charities. So that's awesome. Is very cool. Good on everybody for Betty White beers.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Great story.
I also like that they did this without actually like making a Betty White beer that has her face or something on it, because it's a little icky and like, are you giving?
Absolutely.
So that's
absolutely. Or just slapping. Yeah, or just slapping her presence on a beer that you just want to sell.
Yeah, like I mean, we've seen that with political figures lately. Out of some beers made in Wisconsin, lots of stuff.
No way.
I did it again.
Any more news, Landon?
Yeah. It says here we've got some Wisconsin beer news by way of California and Illinois too.
Yeah. So this is kind of a weird one. Last week, Molson Coors announced that it was discontinuing its St. Archer Brewing label, which I don't think was ever distributed up here. But this is a San Diego brewery that was founded in 2013 and then acquired by the macro brewer just like 2 years later. So this is in the thick of the craft beer buying spree that happened. This brand is being the brand is being retained by Molson Coors but mothballed, and the brewery is what was actually sold. So this is a nice, I guess, I mean, it's less than, I guess, 8 years old ish brewery. This is in the Miramar area of San Diego, so not far from Ballast Point, AleSmith, a bunch of other breweries you probably heard of or know. And that facility was acquired by Kings and Convicts, the once tiny Chicago area brewery that you probably only know because it acquired Ballast Point from Constellation Brands 2 years ago in probably the most shocking brewery deal ever. Maybe Goose Island was probably because it was the first, but this is like so weird. They're so small and they bought this huge national brand. So back before that deal, or back before this current deal, Kings and Convicts had made another splashy announcement. In 2019, it said that it was building a big destination brewery complex, complete with hotel, banquet hall, restaurant in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, just over the state line from Illinois. And in his story on the St. Archer acquisition, Josh Knoll from the Chicago Tribune reported that what seemed fairly obvious at this point, that nothing has happened in Pleasant Prairie. He confirmed that Kings and Convicts plan to build a new brewery in Pleasant Prairie had been scratched in favor of, obviously they're buying things that exist instead of building fresh. So Kings and Convicts, we hardly knew you. And boy, I'm gonna miss that. Kings and Convicts. So it seems like they've got a lot going for them. Okay. Since we're talking about national brewery acquisitions, I do think we should mention the other one that you may have heard about last week. Monster Beverage, which makes the energy drinks in those big ugly cans, purchased the Canarchy line of Canarchy Alliance of Breweries. This was a bunch of former craft breweries, including Oscar Blues, Cigar City, and 5 other mostly kind of regional breweries that had been kind of put together under that banner, and then they ended up being bought by a hedge. Is it a hedge fund or fire? It's called Fireman's Capital, and so it's like a I don't know the term. I think it's a hedge fund. I think it was bought. They were bought by a hedge fund, which obviously means that they're not going to be kept for very long. So now we know the outcome, and that's being sold to Monster Beverage. Might not be the last acquisition of these brands, because Monster Beverage seems like it's ripe for the plucking for a larger beverage brand as well.
Well, and I think
kind of reading
Coke
the tea leaves.
doesn't Coca-Cola have the largest share of Monster?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So maybe Coke will be making. Maybe I could think of maybe they could do some collabs like Cigar City, like Hunapu Cherry
So
Coke
you don't
variant.
you don't buy the whole soft drink trying to diversify line?
Sure, I do. I
Possible.
mean, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
I don't know. That's kind of the PR that's surrounding that whole thing.
sure. I mean,
So
nobody's drinking. I mean, Topo Chico hard seltzer we got now. I mean, the world's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask.
right.
Oh,
Yeah, and
and
I
that,
didn't know what to think of that one. But yeah, what's going on, Chris?
I was just gonna wrap up the news segment, but I don't
Okay.
want to cut you off.
Wrap it
No,
up.
no.
And that
I'm just
is your January Badger Beer Hour news.
and bye.
All right. Apologies to Ryan Koga for having to follow that truly bizarre news segment, but I am thrilled to welcome Ryan Koga, brewmaster and I believe co-owner of Karben4 Brewing. You guys have brewing in your name now?
Brewing, yeah, Karben4
Yeah,
Brewing.
you guys know Karben4 out of Madison. Happy anniversary, Ryan.
Thank you very much. Is it going to be served with a hot plate of ass, too?
Yes.
From the chat, I wasn't sure if you're talking about donkey steaks or something else. So,
all right. Okay. Well,
or the salad bar.
Happy anniversary and happy birthday to your youngest, who had celebrated his third earlier tonight. That's very cool.
Yep.
And congratulations to you on your 9th year with Karben4 or of Karben4.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Chris. You were, you were there right at the beginning when we were brewing Silk Scorpion. I think you were there on like Silk Scorpion Brew Day, like very, very beginning, the first time I met you in person, when we only had 3 tanks in the back and it was just me brewing. And it's a long time ago, man. It's pretty much a lifetime ago for me.
Yeah.
In brewery years, I don't know if it's like dog years, but for me, it feels more like 40.
Yeah.
40 years.
What stands out when you look back on, like, what are the key things that you think about when you look back on those 9 years?
Probably the biggest thing that always hits me is all of the extraordinary people I've had the privilege and honor to get to know. Like first and foremost, everybody on my team, and that's been on the team at K4. You know, a lot of people want to, when they talk to me or they say, "Hey, great job there," I'm the first person to say it's my team, because it really is. It's a group effort. I depend on them, and it's a privilege to get to work alongside them. And beyond that, the multitude of people I've met on the periphery, some people that are very close friends of mine now I met through the brewery. I met my wife at the previous brewery I worked at in Montana. So there's always that. But, we just made a lot of relationships and a lot of connections, and had the privilege of getting to know a lot of people in this community, in the Madison community, and to do something in my home state, something of worth. And I think that's probably the deepest thing I take away, is just all the people and relationships, which is what makes a brewery anyway. We've made a lot of cool beers. I've learned a lot of things. I had just enough knowledge from the first brewery I was at, which was Yellowstone Valley Brewing in Billings, Montana. I was doing a lot of the maintenance, fixed things, did a lot of stuff there. But I knew how to turn on and off the boiler, but at K4, we've had to replace the boiler, replace pretty much every underlying part of our brewery. We've had to replace boiler, compressed air, just everything, right? So each time something comes up, I've had to take a really deep dive down to make sure that we're spending the few dollars that we have wisely. So I've got just a really broad experience in that sense operating it, you know. And so we've made a lot of cool beers. We've had to learn a lot of new processes, learned how to run new packaging equipment, install new packaging equipment, learned how to can, because I only bottled before that. And so I've grown in that way, and just really all the experiences. It's sometimes I walk around feeling like, oh man, I don't know anything. And then I get somebody calling me and asking a question about, hey, can you give me some advice? You know, can you think about this or that? And all of a sudden, just like the answer is there. And I think to myself, there's no way I'm worth anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm always not amazed, but surprised sometimes by the knowledge I've retained. And, first and foremost, I would say all the people, whether it's just the extraordinary people at the 115th, with our relationships we've had now with the Wisconsin International Guard and others too, other fire departments and every community member, you know. And we've had people get married at our brewery. We've had people meet their spouse at our brewery. So it's just a privilege to be like a center, to be a conduit or a catalyst for those connections.
Yeah.
That to me, like, for me, beer, that's the most important function beer can ever serve, is just bringing people together, creating these opportunities. So to just be able to witness it for the last 9 years and look forward to more is just, it's extraordinary.
Yeah. The readers of my column know that we talked earlier this month, and ahead of a column for the anniversary and the anniversary beer in particular. I mean, anniversaries, everybody's got an anniversary, so it's hard to really write too much about that. But there it is. Priest, Prophet, and King. So
that's 2022 right there.
Yeah, this is the second year of this, and I have not actually had this beer yet, but I am looking very much forward to it. Can you tell me about this? Tell us about this beer and kind of how it came about and what it actually is.
Sure. So one of a former brewer at K4, Tim Ott, he's a brewer over in, I believe, the Twin Cities right now. He came on the crew, really had a passion for brewing and home brewing and such, and joined our crew and worked his way up and quickly became a staff brewer. And I'd put him in charge of our burgeoning pilot brewing program, where we were really starting to expand the number of pilot fermenters. We had 1 barrel fermenters that we had, and he loved to brew barley wines, and he just basically made a point like, hey, we should be brewing a barley wine at least once a year. And I had no rebuttal for it. All I had was like, you are correct. So perfect. And he really did want to do it like full out with the with barrels and everything. And we were always looking for fun stuff to do with barrels and have an excuse to bring in more excellent barrels. And I think actually the first time we did the barley wine, last year's version, it was our first time ever doing a reiterated mash, where you take you collect higher gravity runnings from a first mash, and then you mash in a second batch, and you use all of the runnings, the wort from the first batch as the strike water for the mash. So it helps you. Our brew house is a converted 10 barrel pub system, and through some engineering things that Ale Asylum figured out, seeing as how we bought the system from them when they were first there, we're able to run it as a 15 barrel system effectively, but it's still a 10 barrel mash tun. So when you have super heavy mash loads, it really just wants to collapse and turn into goo and always get stuck. So one way you can get around having to drown out your mash tun, or to having to add a metric ton of Belgian candy sugar to the kettle to get your gravity up, you can do a reiterated mash. And Tim wanted to.
So I kind of understand this. This sounds like you're basically using water or wort to hit instead of water in the first. Is that kind of
in the second mash? So you You brew it like you brew a double batch. So I'm sorry, I just went right down the rabbit hole into the weeds. So I'm not trying to get too sticky here. But we basically, for us, our kettle fills at 17.6 barrels. So on the first mash, we only collected 10 barrels worth of runnings. So it was much higher gravity. And then we used that wort as the strike water to mash in the second mash, and then filled up our kettle like normal. So we had a really high gravity beer. I think it was like over 25 Plato when it was done. And so anyway, it was delicious. It was perfect. And it tasted great. And we put it into barrels, not knowing when it would or should come out. And before we had the chance to bring out the barley wine, Tim had taken a different brewing position and had moved out of Madison. And then the pandemic hit. And every year, we had always been trying to do a goofy, fun beer just for whatever, for our anniversary beer. And we had a different glass every year to go with it. And we said, what are we going to do this year? And we were trying to be creative with the things that we had on hand, because cash got really tight during shutdown time since our tap room was shut down. And I don't remember who had the idea first, probably my brother Zach, or our barrel master Sam. One of them had the idea that said, well, we got this barley wine, maybe it's time to come out because it's been in here for 16 months now. Yeah, and it's like ready to go. So we said, cool, let's can it, and that'll be our anniversary beer, since we were doing a lot of curbside. That was like a really easy curbside experience to get out there. And a 16-ounce can of 10+% beer is a great one to split with a friend, So we thought, it's great. And then we also had the idea with that what we should do is just keep the barley wine as our forever anniversary beer. And every year, it'll be the first batch that goes through our brew house. So this year was January 3rd. Last year was January 2. Very first batch that goes through is the barley wine, ferments out, gets put into a new eclectic selection of barrels, and it just kind of collects all the energy from the year. And then the next year we rack out that wine and get ready to rack in the new barley wine that was just brewed.
And so, you kind of you barely alluded to this, but the like we say, obviously it says barrel aged barley wine on the thing, but this is a whole bunch of barrels. I mean, like I don't even think you exactly knew what all the barrels but they're all like tons of different barrels. Like what went into this year's version?
This year, so I actually have to go to the can. And I know I have to apologize. I'm apologizing publicly here. I know when we talked, you're like, hey, can you give me that collection of barrels? And I just totally spaced on asking my guy. Because we're doing like renovations and stuff right now. I'm like,
it's a lot. I mean, it didn't even really matter because there's like to get that granular because there's so many different ones that and the crazy thing, at least in my 2021 cans, is that if you look at it and say rum barrels, and you're like, yeah, okay, rum,
then you pick it up,
and then like brandy, and it's like, there's that kind of vinous. It's extraordinarily complex, and just a super fun beer. I've had when I tweeted about this last year that hey, there's this like bomb barley wine just kind of sitting over at Karben4 right now. You should go get some. People were like, oh really? Okay, that sounds kind of interesting. And then like the tweets that I got when people went and picked it up and like came back and it's like, holy shit, this is crazy. This is crazy. Like, I mean, it spoke for itself. It's really a wild beer. I'm really excited to try this year's version too.
So this year has the barrel collection includes red wine barrels, port wine, coffee, bourbon, tequila, straight bourbon, maple syrup, coconut rum, and cherry brandy. So it's fun to like take the mix. And, I mean, when we first picked out the eclectic mix on the first run, we thought that it would probably have to have some kind of a bespoke blend that we would really want to choose portions and pick a profile.
Yeah.
And my lead brewer, my barrel master, Sam Coling, he was playing around with it a little bit. And he would come up with like 8-9 little sample glasses and put it on the
Just from
on the
going from barrel with the
He would
thief.
bring it in a packaging line, and I thought, oh man, there's no way I'm gonna be good for anything after this. Every time, and we'd be sipping and tasting and sipping and tasting, and I'd usually say, hey, I'll follow your lead. Like, why don't you hit it off, and I trust you. And what it came down to in the end when he did that was he did a blend of equal portions of all of them, and it was just the best version of it all. So we thought, let's just keep rolling with it, So every year you still test individual barrels, and if something's wrong or it doesn't seem like it's gonna land right in the mix, like we'll make editorial moves if we need to. But for right now, between the first year and the second year, it's just been spot on.
Yeah. The other big thing that's happening at Karben4 right now is, it's kind of done now, but is a new completely revamped beer lineup. Of course, the Fantasy Factory is not going anywhere, but you got 2 new year rounders and then a couple different series of beers that's going to be rotating through. What is it like? I mean, like, what are you thinking of? What were you thinking about as you're thinking about what the hell to do with your beer lineup in 2022? Like, how do you approach that question, that problem, and how did you end up where you did, and also talk about where you did end up, obviously.
I think you nailed it with the what the hell am I going to do? That kind of encapsulates the thought. Was like, man, we've tried a lot of strategies. We've tried to overanalyze and underthink at times, and get strategic. And I would say, yeah, you're right. Number one, Fantasy Factory is not going away. It's not going anywhere. In fact, we constantly improve that beer. It goes through taste panel pretty much every batch all the time. We put our finger on the things that we really love. We really are able to drill down and get very particular about 1 or 2 things that we don't like as much, or at least traits that present consistently when a batch of FF in a taste panel gets a lower score. We say, okay, what's that trend? Let's nail down what exactly is that? Why is that happening? Let's get more of what we love and less of what we don't prefer, and make the best version. So we constantly do that with FF, and we always will. No, there's nothing about that beer where we sit back on our ass and do nothing about it. We take nothing for granted on Fantasy Factory. It's a constant improvement. And then beyond that, we've had years where we released 1 or 2 new beers in bottles like every single month. This was like right before cans got super huge. And we thought, okay, we need to have these small batches and sell this and do this. And we got really strategic with trying to do more of a turn and burn type of thing, of appropriate size. And, there was some success there, but the cost of developing like new 6-pack holders and labels and all the things, especially with the art that we do, it's an involved process. So we ended up pretty much always losing money on everything, and or just breaking even. And so it was like, how do we get better at this? What is the code we're trying to crack? And while we're having all of those discussions, which are very metric based and trying to actually dig into things, because as a small segue, here's a small thing. We're one of the few breweries, maybe one of the only ones, that we actually try to control our own live inventory in our distributors' warehouses. So what normally happens, and what happened at my last brewery, was that the distributor would send you a PO saying, hey, this is what we want you to ship to us. We're going to come pick it up. And we would say, okay. And those numbers sometimes aren't based on real world figures at all. Sometimes it's just hearsay. And in fact, it happened early in our business where we had something like that happen, where they wanted a like night call way back when. And it was like, it's running out. And I missed the birth of Zach's daughter, my niece, his first daughter. I missed it because I was doing a double brew of night call because it was an emergency. And like nobody touched a keg for over a month because it just wasn't necessary. So Zach said, no way, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to control our own stuff. So we actually go in every Monday and harvest all the data out of the system to say what's selling, exactly where and how much, so that we'll revamp our production schedule to match what is being sold in real time, so that we're only brewing the beer that needs to be brewed. and it helps keep everything fresh. It helps keep cash flow better for us and distributor. And I tell you this story so I can tell you another story, almost like a Bill Cosby moment. You know, I told you that story so I could tell you this one, but without all the raping.
Yes.
The point is that when we see things moving with a lot lower velocity in stores or through our distributors' warehouses, we're talking with them every week. You know, we're telling them what they're going to come and pick up and why. And
so you,
we say,
you really got the finger on the pulse of what your beers are doing out in the market.
Exactly. So like sometimes we'll say, hey, why isn't this moving there? And then we'll drill deep down into it and say, oh, hang on, why do these pick and saves on this part of town have this beer, but these ones don't? And it helps us to kind of really control things. So when I say that we're being data driven, we're really trying to be data driven. And so that affects your seasonals too, because we're watching sell-through rates and saying, you know, what do people want? What statement do we want to make? Of course, you know, like, well, how do we be true to ourselves? But then also, how do we keep it fresh and the best version of it for our consumers? You know, because with Fantasy Factory, that's been the thing from the beginning. Is everybody knows IPA is dying as soon as you make it. It's already on its way to death. So how do you get the best version of it to your consumer? Well, that's how you got to control that chain. And in fact, I think Zach's actually given a presentation for the MBAA for the Milwaukee chapter tomorrow evening on this very thing, like controlling your own inventory. So anyway, so there's this live discussion. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And parallel with all of that work is the fact that, when we opened our doors, there was 1,800 breweries and now there's 9,000 in operation. And when I first started being a brewer 15 years ago, I think the way the code that was cracked for how to run a successful brewery, you had maybe 2 or 3 models, and that model seemed to kind of change every 4 years, 5 years. And we talked about this in my interview the other week, right? Nowadays, sometimes what changes is how to do it is like changes every 4 to 6 months. And before you can even react to, is this a trend or is this something that I connect with? That, yeah, maybe it's trendy, but that doesn't matter whether I connect with it as a brewer and I should pursue it, because you want to stay true to it. You don't want to just chase things for the sake of it. Right. That's not giving your consumer, your customer, your best version of you, and you're asking them to invest their dollars, which is an exchange of their life force to get those dollars, right? You're saying, I don't want you to invest time and the opportunity to drink our beer is a night that they can never get back. So we're always trying to show ultimate respect to you, your time and your money and your life. So how do we best do that? And kind of what we came around with this year was, we want Fantasy Factory to be like Wisconsin's IPA. Like if you're in a bar, you got to have like Spotted Cow, Fantasy Factory, and whatever else, but that's where it should start in Wisconsin as well, how we feel. And then we thought, what other beers do we want to do that we haven't done before that we think are a good version or that we would really like to drink? And after a lot of deliberation, we came up with adding Hawk Jones as a session IPA, the type of beer and a kind of beer and a recipe that we love to drink and enjoy personally. And then doing Midwesty as a super crushable Pilsner. There you go. There's that beautiful label. So that is our new core lineup. And that's not to say like Lady Luck was one of my favorite beers of all time, one of my favorite recipes. And that's not to say that things that we've done in the past won't ever come back and won't come around. It just when we look at those sales trends and those data trends of sales, they're just not. They can't occupy as much of our throughput on our brewery. So we're going to have these as a new core flagship lineup that we think connects really well with our neighbors and our friends and the people that we love to live nearby in the Midwest and in Wisconsin. And then after that, we have the 2 rotating programs. The one is the Happy Fun Time, and which is a way that we can chase hype beers and trends and do our own version of stuff. And then the other one, which is the World Beer Tour, where we just get to the things that got us into beer in the first place, which was the discovery, the discovery of culture across the world and being just pick a place. What beer is awesome there? Let's do our version of it. Let's just try to nail it. And then Happy Fun Time was our chance to do like, hype beer, fun beer, fruited sours, just whatever. We have a cool stuff coming up. I think I'm going to make a fruited tea beer coming up. We have some other ideas that we're just things we want to chase and have fun with too, but in a way that with the canning now, it's less money for packaging, so we can afford to do smaller, quicker batches.
Yeah.
But I'm rambling now, so I want you to divert me somewhere.
One of the things that struck me when you were describing this a couple weeks ago was the frequency, in that these are going to be both monthly drops. I think Happy Fun Time is Beer Tour the first of the month, and then Happy Fun Times is third week.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, and then every month there's going to be potentially 2 new Karben4 beers coming through, and they won't stay long. But I mean, I think that's great, and I think kind of the bifurcated model of like, something that's super contemporary. I mean, you're probably talking to different consumers mostly. I mean, I'm excited about like a finished sati and Japanese rice lager. You said, I think.
Yeah, New Zealand pale ale, all kinds of fun stuff. A lot of lagers this year. A lot of lagers.
Yeah. But really, like, beers that you don't see on the shelf very often that are fun, and you kind of, I mean, I'm of the view that like if I'm seeing these breweries or these beers from certain breweries, I'm going to be like, yeah, okay. But like, in Karben4's hands, I kind of feel like, yeah, let's give this a whirl, for sure. So,
yeah, we, like you just nailed it too, Chris, there, because what the data is kind of, because we're doing what we do for controlling inventory, we're talking to all of our distribution houses regularly every week. And so we're always asking their advice, what do you think is going to work here? Like, because we don't want to send you stuff that's going to go to die, that we just have to take back and shuffle around and shuttle to different houses. Mm-hmm. So, this helps us as a company get streamlined and to keep the freshest beer in the best places, because in certain markets, like way up north, our flagship beers, like we might only care about placing, it's like we might only get 3 shelf spots, and we'll say, these are the ones we want up there. And the ones that are more turn and burn, we want to be fresh and go anyways. And it's like, well, that's kind of like a Madison, Milwaukee type of market thing, that's just like ready to go. So we're trying to maximize or be efficient about each market that we're in to serve the customer there and the consumer based on what they're purchasing. We're trying to serve them best and say, we're just going to give you more of what you want. And every once in a while we get to send fun stuff too and say, we can do other stuff. But if all you really care about is knowing that, hey, I'm up north at the lake, I just want a cold pack of FF because it just never disappoints me. Yeah. And it's a part of my like ritual. Awesome, dude. I'm so honored to be a part of your ritual. And I just promise you it's going to be the best one we can. And if there's ever a problem, like it gets sent to me personally, and we'll try to personally respond to it and make sure it's better, the best part of your ritual. But but yeah,
I'm being prodded by my handlers to get to the spotlight. So Ryan, can you stick around? You can stick around for the beer spotlight, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great. Run it, Greg. All right, I had to do a quick rinse there. So the beer spotlight this month is, as previously mentioned, Midwesty. Oh, look at that. You got one too. Surprise. So Ryan, tell us about the concept behind this beer a little bit and kind of the intent.
Well, where I learned to brew at was a very malt focused brewery. My former employer, my former boss there, look at that. I love it. I mean, look at it effervescing.
Champagne of beers gets a lot of run in this household, but this is that's a pretty nice champagne approximation there.
So he got me hooked on the beauty and soul of malt, and K4 beers from the beginning. That's been one of our things. It's been one of my signatures to the beer that we brew is the malt. In most of our beers, like we're one of the very few breweries that our grain silo, our bulk silo, is filled with Simpson's like Golden Promise. It's like one of the most expensive ones. It's the most flavorful. It's very rich.
That's
the highest grade.
key malt in Fantasy Factory, right?
Correct. Yeah, So, but it doesn't always have to be Golden Promise, but it should always have a good balance to it. And, just a really quenching, delicious Pilsner, you just can't beat it. You really can't beat it. It always satisfies. And so for us, we wanted to make something that had that great malt soul to it, that kind of K4 signature to it, but was just super crushable, could go with you anywhere. The first time we had the test batch come through, I remember taking a drink out of the pilot fermenter, a sample, and I was like, oh my God, I would drink this for breakfast, and even though I'm a brewer, I'm pretty, I get drunk pretty quick. So I get hungover from, totally get hungover from taste panel all the time. Like if taste panel's at 10, I got a headache at noon. So I don't actually bring a whole lot of beer home with me because, like I said, I got 4 kids and I can't be hungover all the time. But this wasn't for the show. This was because I brought it home because I wanted to drink it all the time. So if that says something, like, there we go, so it's something for all occasions. It's something that's very Midwest as a beer style in and of itself, I mean,
yeah. And Greg just noted in the behind the curtain, we have a little side chat that goes on the side of our little thing here. He notes that it's 4.4% ABV, which is, pretty low. I mean, I always think of my benchmark for light beer is Miller Lite, which is 4.2. So obviously this is really down there as far as ABV goes, which is great. And you can have, I mean, I'll just kind of jump into okay. Now, one thing I wanted to mention was this beer, you're calling it a Pilsner, but this has an adjunct in it, right? That pushes it a little bit more toward the American lager style.
Well, yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
I kind of like glossed over that when I read in the article. I didn't think too much of it. And my brother brought it up and he's like, really? What is this and that? And I was actually just looking up on the Brewers Association guidelines that an American Pilsner can include, by their authority, up to 25% rice or corn as an adjunct. Yeah. So that the rice was more to kind of keep the alcohol low, get a really, really crisp finish on it. I mean, we ended up choosing Cascade hops for this one. So Cascade hops, domestic Pilsner, and a little bit of flaked rice. And it just came together perfectly on it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that because I'd love to be corrected too. So help me. I was going to ask you to just say.
No, I mean, I was thinking of traditional German Pilsner, is all malt, kind of thing. And but I mean, there's other breweries, Hinterland's Packerland Pilsner has the same deal going on. And I actually think that it works really well in this beer because it lightens it up. The label, I don't want to dwell on packaging and stuff, but Greg, you might want to throw that out there. It's a little bit clearer, but I think I said this in the story. It feels like it looks and drinks like a beer that you would have at a supper club or something. It's very easy and approachable, and it's clean. This has been said a lot, but small beers like this, there's nothing to hide behind. If you screw up, you don't have a huge hop addition coming in to just kind of wipe that out. It's a minimalist beer, and when there's a problem with it, it comes through. And you see that with the macro beers. There's a reason why a lot of people think that these beers are crappy, because if you're making them with cheap ingredients, and that can come through even if you're on your 6,000th batch of this beer. But especially for this, I assume this is batch 1, right?
It depends. Do you have the date code, the batch code on the bottom?
I do. 12/21.
That's batch 2.
Batch 2. Okay.
Wait. No, that's batch 1.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, point being,
I'm looking at my production schedule. Sorry, I'm looking now. I was like, let me pull up the Google Calendar because we've canned 2 batches so far, and the second one was me see here. Can. That's FF. That's FF again. It's a lot of FF. The second one was canned on January 2nd. It says batch 1. Yeah, you got batch 1.
Really nicely done. I mean, it's the kind of beer that you can just you could easily have. I mean, maybe not you, no offense, but 3 or 4 in a night, and not be put out.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
That was probably a part of it. Maybe a little selfish move there, but I
works
think
out. It works out.
To kind of like sew it up.
Yeah.
As like a takeaway is that when I started as a brewer 15 years ago, it was at the very beginning of the hop nuclear arms race. Like how hoppy could you make something? It's like IPAs were really starting to take off. This is like right before Ninkasi even opened, and everything was like, how hoppy could you get it? And all anybody cared about was IBUs. How many IBUs? How many IBUs? Oh, 130. Oh, just melting your. And then it was like, oh shit, like barrel-aged beers, how much alcohol could you get? And everything. And it took everything to these edge cases and extremes. And, even with like newer beers as like hype beers, and I don't say hype beer is like a derogatory term really in the end, because I think they're delicious and I love them too.
You're making 12 of them this year. I hope not.
But yeah, exactly. So I do like them, and they're well done. And those who do them are really well done. And I have them, I'm always blown away, but it's always try to find an extreme here, an extreme there.
Yeah.
And then what you have over time, since I became a brewer, I keep dating myself and keep saying it, but I've kind of watched this trend happen where, craft brewing was still really unknown. Craft beer was really known when I first started. And now it's a very common kind of thing to know, because you have a younger generation, even as they come into the coming of age for 21 for drinking, like they've already seen it now. They already know it. You don't have to educate
their whole lives.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to introduce the concept of craft beer to people.
Yeah.
So now people understand that there's options. So the human thing to do is, okay, well, how many options? The same way that there was a race of IBUs and alcohol, and now it's the race of options. It's always about a new experience, new. Not even necessarily better experience, just different experience. And that's something that's hard for me to. Some people crush it and they kill it and they do really well, and they probably make more money than I do, so that's fine. They do more successful in that way. But for us, the beers that we chose, the ABVs that we chose, they were about saying like, okay, who are we? What are the things that we like? Do we have to have this race or that race? Or can we just create some really awesome core beers that are really well crafted by people who really, really care about what they're making and what they're doing? And it lets our customer have a reason to be like truly deeply loyal to it when they find it, is that we're trying to speak right to people's hearts and put our best foot forward. And, we make high ABV and we may do this and that, but there's always a balance. We're always trying to make something never for like the flash and the flare of it, but, something that's just a little bit deeper. And that's what we want to hype,
Awesome. Ryan, thank you. I know that you like to talk, so I knew that you were a natural for this. And you did not disappoint. But no, I say
sorry
that
again. Sorry.
I say that from a good place. Thank you so much for coming on, and cheers.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate it, Chris. And it's always a pleasure getting to talk to you.
All right, looking forward to the World Beer Tour. I'll be seeing you around the bottle shop.
Awesome. Perfect.
Holy hell, Andy.
How's it going, Landon?
You're here.
I am. Greg likes to hide me behind the scenes until this segment for some reason. So not sure what's up with that, but thanks, Greg.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a couple events coming up this
That's
month
awesome.
and next month before our next episode. So first things first, we have Beer and Cheese Fest this weekend, which hopefully I don't have to explain too much to everybody in this audience. It's Beer and Cheese Fest. It's in Madison. You should probably know what it is by now. So yeah, tickets I think are still on sale for that if you haven't gotten them already. They are requiring vaccination, so if you haven't gotten your jab, you shouldn't be going out anyways. So
Yeah, it's becoming a thing. It's
yeah.
it's a big to do in the Twin Cities right now. So
Yeah. It's free. Get the
Yeah.
shot. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that hard. Anyway, my opinions on that aside, we also
We
have
digress.
we have Third Space is having an event next Saturday on the 29th. It is their Ice Bear Fest. So every year they do a big release for their Ice Bear Baltic Porter, and release party and everything like that. So they're selling a $20 pre-package right now, which gets you $1 off beers all day and some free included swag.
Sweet.
But you can also just show up to the event for free and just hang out. And yeah, sounds like a fun time. Milwaukee's got a bunch of different winter blues avoidance parties going on this season. So we'll get more into those in a little bit. But the other big one next Saturday, of course, is Central Water's anniversary party, which I believe both Chris and Greg are attending next weekend. They are offering both like drive-through and outside options, as well as the barrel house. So whatever your comfort level around other people is, they'll be able to cater it for you. So that should also be another event that I probably don't have to describe too much. It's the anniversary party. If you haven't gotten your tickets already, you're not going.
You're way too late.
Yep. Maybe next year, which is what I keep saying and have said for like the last 3 years.
Oh,
so
Chris isn't going. He said he's not going. Oh my gosh.
Too bad.
Yeah, bummer.
But anyway, moving on. Mitten Fest in Milwaukee is one of those other winter blues avoidance fests that I was alluding to earlier. They have it's put on by, read my notes here. It's in Bayview's Potter Avenue, and part of Logan in recent years. And they will have some Central Waters rare beers there.
Very nice.
And then also some famous Brandyland Old Fashions.
Ooh.
So yeah, looks like a couple rare beers from Bell's as well. So
nice.
Again, if you're looking to, Chris is yelling at me from the sidelines. It's Bernhardt's. Yeah. So yeah, if you're in Milwaukee, look out for that. Again, just another way to drink away those winter blues, or just, spend some time. I would imagine that there's plenty of NA options there too.
Sure.
So, and then the last one here that I'm going to get to is just getting into the Valentine's Day season. By the time our next episode comes out, it will be post Valentine's Day. So just want to mention that there's probably going to be a bunch of Valentine's Day events at your local brewery. So keep your ear to the sidewalk for that. But the big one is Lakefront is doing a vow renewal and wedding ceremonies that you can do at their place. It sounds like they've been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yep.
But they just give couples the opportunity to make lasting memories on Valentine's Day. So,
and I think Russ usually officiates that, right?
Yep, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then you got one more there, the Mobcraft Warming House.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there is another one of those winter avoidance things. Mobcraft is doing a pop-up at Drexel Town Square, and it's partnering with Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network. So yeah, pop-up indoor-outdoor event. Again, just one of those things to get out and avoid some of these winter blues. So
yeah, I'll make. I know we said that we weren't probably going to plug it, but I'll make one shameless plug, and we don't have tickets available yet, but March 29th, so you can put it in your calendar. Taproom Travelers and Brew Adventurers who they do a podcast here in Eau Claire. We're teaming up. We're going to do a beer and cheese tasting. So yeah, there's they commented tonight, the Brew Adventures. Yeah. So we're going to, pre-pandemic, we actually had one of these events going on at the Pablo here in Eau Claire. So we're taking it to a place called the Fish House in Altoona. We rented the whole facility, so it's 50 tickets when it finally goes on sale. So watch social medias for that.
Yep. You got plenty of time to plug it between now and then too. So I'm
right,
sure you'll be hearing about this a lot in the next 2 episodes.
You'll be hearing a lot about it. Yeah, absolutely. So that's
thanks, Greg.
Greg.
He's itching to get out of here. And you're muted.
Oh, buddy.
Wonderful way to mute myself here at the end in here, but fantastic interview, Chris. That was great. Ryan's a great guest. We want to thank you for that.
In case you can't tell, I had nothing to do with that fantastic interview.
Right.
Ryan's a good talker.
Absolutely, and I can't wait. I was saying in the back, in the green room there, that I can't wait to get my Karben4 curbside. I haven't really looked at the website recently, but man, they got a whole bunch of different ones that I want to try. And y'all know I'm one of those guys that wants to try every damn beer that they have. So I'll be trying to do that under a decent price. It's going to be difficult though, but I don't really care. Andy, thanks for the events. It sounds like, things are cranking up here, even a little bit in the winter. I know it's the winter, but like it just seemed like last year there were no events to talk about, and it seems to be ramping up. So I hope that is good for our breweries.
For sure.
Any other parting shots here before we get out of here, fellas?
Support local. They're still struggling. I know that we're what, 2 years into this. We're not out of the woods yet. Right. So do what you can. I know it's a hard time for everybody, but
yeah, and if you can, do like me, do the curbsides. If you don't feel it's safe to go in, do the curbsides. If they're not offering on their website, call them. They'll bring it out. Yeah. I don't know a brewery that would not bring it out. I mean, maybe y'all can tell me one, but if you would call them and say, "Hey, I'm just going to pull up. I'm here. I want this, and this. Here's my card."
They'll bring it out.
They'll work with you, right? So
and tip like you mean it.
Tip like you mean it. But there are many. Karben4 has it there. I just checked, so they're still doing curbside. Some of these breweries have taken their curbside off their website, but in my opinion, it doesn't mean that they're not still doing it, or they don't still want your money. They want your money. They want. What'd you say, Chris?
I was gonna say, honestly, if you're gonna go into a grocery store and spend half hour in there, I mean, if you mask up and just run in and grab some beer to go out of the cooler, I mean, buying direct from breweries makes a huge difference in their bottom line. I think we talked about that in a previous show, but that's like the difference between buying a 12-pack of Mixed Fantasy Factory at your grocery store versus pretty close to the same price at the brewery. If your goal is to support local, there's such a huge difference in buying at the brewery. So let's just encourage people to do that.
And Ryan was talking about this too. Freshness. I can't stress to y'all how much expired beer I've bought recently. And it just really, I should know better. And I just get into the bottle shop and I get excited and I want to buy what I want to buy. And generally it's been IPAs. And then I get home and I get on my Friday stream, as many of you seen, and Doug and I are looking at our expiration dates and we're looking into the camera like we're a bunch of idiots. If you buy from your brewer, there's less of a chance that you're going to get expired beer. And if so,
probably zero chance, really.
Zero, right? Yeah. But if so, say something happens. You could call them up. I could call Ryan up and say, "Look, that was expired. I just got it from your brew house." And I'm sure Ryan would be like, "Man, I'm sorry. Here." and come back and I'll put a 6-pack in your trunk and just go. It's great. So there's a little bit more accountability, I believe, with brewers than there is. Sometimes you do this at a bottle shop, depending on where you're at, and the cashier just roll their eyes at you like you just bought that. That's on you. Got it. But that's not a really great way to do business. But also though, you're almost guaranteed freshness. So on that aspect. So fellas, our next Badger Beer Hour is February 16th at 8 p.m. Any last shots, or we'll let you go into the night.
Eat some ass.
Wait, are you right about that, Greg? It is. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yes, I am. Yeah. I'm right about something once in a while.
That's good.
Every once in a while. Cheers.
I promise I'll have my beard back by next month, guys.
Oh, good. Thank goodness.